Andrade from the Liberal Arts Department here at the College of the Marshall Islands. And today I'm joined by Richard Newman, also from the Liberal Arts Department of the College of the Marshall Islands. Hello, Richard, welcome. We're going to be talking about
Thank you for having me.
book, Graveyard of the Gods.
Graveyard of the Gods.
Now, what's this book about?
I think this novel came to me in 2008, and there was one scene that just appeared into my head. I have no idea why, of a guy in a cornfield where there was an oil derrick, and the oil derrick was barely working because it had almost pumped dry, and he was waiting for something, and it turns out that he was waiting for the St. Louis Mafia to come by and drop off a body that he was supposed to dispose of. And that was what started this whole thing. And then it was kind of like when you tell a story or you're finding a story, it's kind of like taking a thread and you just start pulling it and you don't know what's going to be at the end of it. And that's what happened.
So you are originally from St. Louis.
I am from St. Louis.
So does the novel incorporate St. Louis elements?
No, it doesn't. Although St. Louis it figures prominently in the pieces that people talk about because that's where the mafia comes from. But it's all set in rural southern Illinois in the cornfields and the soybean fields of dying small town America. So I guess that you asked me what it was about too. When I pulled the story thread, the main character who's waiting for the body drop off takes it to the hog farms where he's going to dispose of the bodies. The hogs will eat anything, including people, and that's how he disposes of the bodies. He's about ready to dump it in, and then he happens to look on the face of the body, and it's someone he knows or knew, and he hadn't seen in a long time, and that's what starts the whole story. Then his quest to find out how this person ended up dead in his hog shed.
So it's mostly a crime novel.
It's a crime novel. I would call it a literary crime novel.
That's a favorite genre in America, I suppose.
I don't know if it's a favorite genre or not,
No.
but it's probably not going to make me millions. It'll probably make me more than I made on my poetry books, all three of them put together. So.
Right. Do you think the Marshallese could relate to the novel in any significant way, or?
Well, in that it's a human story, and people love dead bodies. People love hogs. I've seen some hogs here that are the size of VW buses, like roaming through the alleys here.
Yeah.
And we've been to some of the islands that are full of hogs as well, and people seem fascinated with hogs. And then hogs eating people seems like a good idea as well. So
Yeah.
I think that that's international.
Yeah, pretty much so. Well, I mean, I ask this because the crime rate in the Marshall Islands is quite low. Small places
It's
usually
true.
have lower crime rates, whereas in America, crime is a big problem, and maybe not the way you portray it in your novel, but all those mass shootings, and I guess people in America and the American public is more used to it
It's true.
than maybe some islanders in the Pacific.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, but anyway, if it's universal,
Yeah, but it's not like any culture is immune to murder. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a tragic murder just on Tuesday
Yes.
across from the college that
That's
people are
right.
talking about. So we live with these tragedies in whatever culture we're in. So it may not have the gun violence and the street violence that we have, say, in St. Louis, but it's all of our stories that we've passed down in every culture that I've ever studied deals with basically murder and crime and people doing horrible things to each other.
right, the state of Missouri has recently been in the news because of racial tensions. Is there an element to that in your novel?
No.
I mean,
Not
are
at
there
all.
black and white characters? Do they relate to each other?
No, because actually my novel is set in southern Illinois,
Mm.
and it's pretty monolithic. It's
Right.
basically poor whites and dying populations of small towns. So my novel is also a celebration of southern Illinois, where my family comes from, and these towns that just get smaller and smaller, and it seems like the largest population of inhabitants is old people. So they're kind of like these towns are giant nursing homes,
Right.
which they don't have here on Marshall Islands, nursing homes.
Yeah.
But all the young people have left, and for a good reason. There aren't any jobs, there aren't any movie theaters, there's nothing to do, so they get out.
They go to the cities.
They
I
go to the
suppose.
cities, yeah.
Right. So is it like a major concern for you, the decay of America?
Of course, yeah. And also one of the things that has done in the small towns is corporate factory farming.
Mm.
So the corporations are buying up all the land or forcing people out. or you may have heard about Monsanto, one of
Yes,
the corporations forcing people out with their seeds, violating copyrights for the seeds as well.
Right. And do you use any special literary techniques? And
You get words.
yeah,
I use a lot
but I
of
mean,
words,
like,
yeah.
you know, whenever someone writes a crime novel, sometimes they give it a twist in the middle of the plot, or, you know, the murderer turns out to be someone who the reader wasn't expecting him
Yeah.
to be, something like that.
I have a few twists that turn out here and there by the end. Some what I think were unexpected. One of my favorite writers is Robert Frost, and he always said, "No surprise for the poet, no surprise for the reader." And I think that works in any kind of genre where you're telling a story as well. And the ending surprised me. I didn't know exactly where I was going to land, and I didn't know exactly who was going to die in this piece, but that's where the thread took me. So hopefully there are some surprises for people.
Right. Well, you know, you learn something new every day, and today I just learned that pigs can actually eat people.
Yeah. Usually more than one. You need a couple of them.
Really?
And the femurs are the hardest to chew through, in case you ever want to dispose of a body yourself.
Right. So it's actually like a very efficient way of doing it, in
Yeah.
order to dispose of a body. I remember a movie. I think it was with one of the Hannibal Lecter's movies. In one of those movies, you know, a herd of pigs actually attacks human
Oh,
beings.
I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah.
I didn't make up the idea. Actually, at one of the farms in my hometown area, there was a guy that accidentally fell into his hog shed and got eaten, and the only thing that was left was his Rolex watch. So.
Wow. Does music play any element in your novel? Because I mean, I'm aware that Southern Illinois and, you know, all that Midwest
Yeah,
area has like some very particular style of music.
It does, and Americana and country.
Exactly.
You know, I refer to it some, but really not overtly. There's more music, I think, in the actual prose style than there is referred to. And I do use a lot of the rhythms of the speech patterns of the area. So to me that's music, but some people it sounds grating, I suppose.
Right. So when is the novel coming out? And
It's coming out September 20th.
September 20th. Can we here in the Marshall Islands expect to read it?
I hope so. I actually just got into an argument with the publisher. They were going to try to send the books here to the Marshall Islands, and apparently UPS will not send to anything that does not have a street address. And of course there are no street addresses here in the Marshall Islands.
Right.
They will not send to a P.O. box.
Do you have any literary inspirations for this novel, and, you know, some authors that you would recommend students of the CMI to read in particular, and if they were to read your novel, they would identify some of those influences in your work?
There are a lot, and a lot of them that you wouldn't actually think. Like F. Scott Fitzgerald is one of my favorite writers, just for his rich, beautiful prose style. But he writes nothing like what I do, and certainly his settings are nothing like what I do.
Yeah, The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's about rich
Yeah.
people in big cities, right?
Yeah,
It's
well,
not about. It's not about.
that one is yeah. But the other novels of his as well.
Right.
But yeah, Cormac McCarthy would probably be a closer comparison. Who I also like, William Faulkner. I have admired for years since I was in high school or college. Those are some of the writers. So some of the ones that I've also liked, Eugenides, who wrote a novel called Middlesex, which was the novel I read right before I read this one, which made me think about the ways you can have a story within a story, or you can have long historical sections or family narratives within the main story. But we were talking about Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and he does that as well in 100 Years of Solitude. And he's
Right.
another one of my favorite writers as well.
Right. So I wonder what the psychological impact would be of someone, you know, finding a body and then, you know, realizing that that's actually someone you know.
Yeah, and someone that had been close to you
Right.
and you had a falling out with.
Right. I mean, do you explore the psychology of the impact, the psychological impact of these experiences?
I
in the characters?
do, but I do it through the main character's point of view, but he's not telling the story. So we call that close third. So there's first person, which is I, or there's second person, which is you. This is third person, but it's from the main character's point of view. So we call that close third. But he's also kind of a stoic, non-talkative person. He's not an intellectual person. So what you get is somewhat limited, and hopefully there are other psychological elements underneath it that resonate more than what you actually get on the page. because it's being filtered through his experiences.
All right. Well, we've run out of time, Richard, but I think this has been a great conversation, and I hope the students here at the CMI eventually get a hold of your novel.
I hope so too. I hope I make millions from it. I'm tired of living off the fat of poetry.
All right, you can find Richard Newman in the Liberal Arts Department, and of course you can find me also over there, and we're very grateful to you for having watched this video.
Thanks for having me.